All right, greetings, Damon and Anandi. Welcome to Meet the Changemakers.
Thank you.
Anandi, what makes Guyana the most food secure place in the world?
Guyana is able to feed all of its residents without any imports
Okay,
through 7 different categories.
7 categories.
Yes.
Okay, let's go through that.
Rice, sugar, um, what is it? Livestock, aquaculture, fisheries, and I'm forgetting a couple of them.
You're forgetting a couple of them.
Yeah.
But the idea is that, you can cover the wide
Right,
variety
grains, yeah.
of grains. Yeah, you can cover the wide variety of things that are considered to be staples.
Right. The entire
As
spectrum of
people.
nutrition is covered.
Is covered. And how did it get that way?
It was developed. There was a lot of money recently through the oil money that came in was able to enhance a lot of agriculture, putting up new grow houses, putting money, like giving one of the only places in the Caribbean that provides farmers with funding. Let's say a natural disaster occurs, flooding or anything happened and your crop gets ruined. They're one of the few or only so far that's able to provide that for farmers so they don't have to worry about their losses.
And so you're saying that came through oil. So Guyana has
yeah.
oil.
Yes.
So through the export and the sale of oil, then the government's been able to reinvest that.
Reinvest in roads where there were never paved roads before, bridges, just the entire country is going through a whole upgrade.
But just specifically around the farming and the food production, has that always been something that's kind of traditional in Guyana, or is that something that's been developed because it's been promoted?
Yes and no. There were periods of time in history where, depending on the politics involved, there were rations and things like that. So folks didn't always have food readily available at those times.
And how long ago did this all happen in terms of like the investment in food production and food security?
Within about the last 10, 15 years.
Okay, so it's relatively recent.
Relatively recent.
All right. Aren't you blessed to be there?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, give thanks. So Damon,
Yes, sir.
we spent a lot of time together coming up in high school and then you disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like it's been decades you've been out of the island. What have you been up to?
Well, in '97, I initially went to New York to study music production. That's why I went to New York. But I got sick. I had Crohn's disease, so I had to come back home for about 9 months or so. Then I went back. My father lived in New Jersey at the time, so I was going to school in Manhattan and living in New Jersey. So music, that was about a year or so, but there was a lot of health expos in the city that I went and attended. So a woman came from upstate New York to this from a retreat center. And I told the woman I had Crohn's disease and whatnot. She started to cry right on the spot because her godson had Crohn's disease. So she felt my pain. At the time, I was her, I don't want to quote his name, but it was a doctor on the island, only internist on the island. I didn't have any options other than him. He specifically told me, if I don't take prednisone for the rest of my life, I'm end up crippled, paralyzed, or dead. So I said, that's not for me. See you later. I never went to him again. I left the island. I only went to him to show him that I was going to that retreat center upstate in Ithaca. He said, no, take the drugs. It's been proven and tested. This is not going to work. I said, well, I'll take this, see, and I won't come back. So I went there. I got a lot better. Raw food diet, meditation, yoga. And so being out in New York, having access to all of that, healthy ways of living and healthy food and not having that hurt, it was an easy decision for me to make, regarding my health. Bermuda, I came here for a Good Friday, had codfish cakes, hot cross buns and all that, went back to New York, was in so much pain. I was like, nah, the Bermuda diet, it's just not for me. The way we combine our foods, fish sandwiches, all these starches we eat I had to find, I thought I was eating good. I grew up Rasta. I had my own garden, was eating from my garden, you know what I mean? But I did eat a little fish, I did eat a little mama's peas and rice or whatever, and I thought I was eating good, but all of these combinations, it's not really good for our body. So I had to learn that for myself. I had to be my own doctor. So that took a lot of research, traveling around America, seeing different doctors. I ended up in Portland, Oregon. I was in New York. I got married in New York in 2005. Got my green card and whatnot. And then I was married for 13 years. Also during that time, they had an article on me in a Bermuda newspaper, Bermuda News, calling me a pioneer because I was out there farming for this organization, and the Associated Press interviewed me. So from they interviewed me, Bermuda, Royal Gazette and whatnot, they found out, like, this is Bermudian out here farming and stuff. So they tracked me down and interviewed me. And so, man, that was like, that was about 15 years ago. So I've been doing the work with farming, but then the farming got to be too much work for me and my health with my Crohn's disease. So that's when I turned into working with children. So I was working with schools. So I created a farm to play curriculum with the second grade elementary school and after school program with the high school. So I was working with children, and then my sickness, I did a conference in 2017, a farm to play conference in Ithaca, New York. That's where I was living. So that was a 3-day conference. Cornell University put up a lot of money, so it was free, and I brought in some keynote speakers, one from the city, one from Detroit, specifically Malik Yakini, and from the city, Karen Washington, who hosts the Black Urban Gardeners Conference in America every year, which Nandi just did a presentation at in Detroit. And so the farming thing kind of switched to working with the children, and that's where I found my joy, So I had my own 2 children. So when my children was in pre-K, I approached the teacher, can we have a garden? First grade, can we have a garden? Second grade, can we have a garden? And that's where it really stuck with the second grade teachers. So I was doing that, for a period of time, from like 2012 or 2017 when I did the conference. And then I got really sick and went to Portland, Oregon. So in Portland, Oregon, I was there for 7 years, kind of get my health together. Because I got really sick. It's just being in an environment, I came back Bermuda initially, and that helped me being in an environment I'm used to, but being out in the city, I had healthy food, but that environment wasn't really for me. It was still kind of stressful, and I think that triggered the Crohn's disease. So now I had to get a surgery. I had to remove 40% of my intestines, my small intestine, 10% of my large intestine, and that was 2 years ago. So since then, I've been bouncing back, getting my health back, getting my strength back, doing more farming, doing more gardening. So now I moved back to Ithaca, New York, because my children are there, and now I'm getting back into teaching children again. So that's basically the work I've been doing.
So you've been busy.
Yeah. Trying to stay busy, yeah, for real.
Busy.
Yeah.
There's been a lot happening.
Doing music as well.
Right.
Doing music too, yeah.
But it sounds like you've done a lot with education and a lot with farming and gardening and things of that nature.
Yeah, teaching children mostly, yeah.
So you being here now is because of your interest in taking a lot of what you've learned from your experiences over the last 20 years and being able to develop something locally.
Right, get back to my people, yeah. My
and Anandi is in there to support you in that initiative.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, so what's a bit of your background other than coming from the most food secure place in the world? What's a bit of your background, Anandi?
So I've always dreamed of creating incredible edible urban spaces. And growing up in one, raised, being from Guyana and raised in Little Guyana, I was surrounded by the Caribbean foods and everything. So I always wanted to create more space and grow some of my own food. And so I was able to create a garden for my mom. My dad and I helped to build it for her right on concrete and was growing some of her traditional foods there. So it was so nice to see my mom be able to go outside, pick whatever she needed to cook, and come back right in the house. And I'd started an organization called Sustainable Queens, where we focus on art, wellness, and ecology, or putting the awe in awesome, and created initiatives like the Critical Moss, where we use moss graffiti to create impactful designs and phrases around the city. Another one is called Taking Liberty, where we went through Liberty Avenue in Richmond Hill, Queens, cleaned up the neighborhood. I spoke to the city, was able to plant over 10 trees along that business district. And so now I go back and visit them every so often, and they're huge right now. And daffodils are planted in the bed. So little ways. I saw what was happening in in nicer neighborhoods and wanted to have that for my neighborhood as well. It's like my people deserve nice things too, And so I was able to create that through the organization and teaching from like young children to university to community elders and beyond about the environment, about being sustainable and what that means, about regenerative agriculture, how to get involved with that, and was even doing these Ayurvedic nutrition classes within the community to be able to share, okay, this is how you make your, ghee. This is how you make your masalas. This is how you can eat seasonally. I took them on a tour of the farmer's market and they were shocked. It's like, that's it? That's all that's growing locally? So it's like we're able to see exactly what was being imported and what was being grown locally and what we should actually be eating for that region that we're living in.
Mm.
So it was just being involved in a lot of community work in that way.
Mm.
In general, just making everything around me beautiful.
Okay. All right. Give thanks. So the two of you, your education, is it primarily experiential, or did you guys focus on certain courses or different institutes or anything to develop the knowledge you have? Because I hear about all the things that you're teaching, but where did that come from, and how did you develop your capacity to
for me, it was all experiential from young.
Mm-hmm.
Had a garden. I'm from Davos Hill. I had a garden on there. I would cook a pot. My cousin was a fisherman. He had some fish, and everybody would come and collect it. I'll feed 15, 20 people from one pot, right from my garden. So you can't get more farm to plate than that. You know what I mean? So, and then my garden was a little area from my house. So walking from my garden, I'll go straight from Berkeley, straight to my garden. That was my sanctuary. And then on my way from my garden home, I'll see somebody's granny or a cousin, oh, you want some carrots or you want some broccoli? And so I'll be sharing it to the elders in the community and teaching the young children about how it grows and whatnot. So that's where it all started. So I just pretty much carried that out there, we had a program where we were making raised beds for elders in some of the senior facilities. I wasn't only making gardens for schools, but community centers, what I mean? Different people and not just in Ithaca, I'll travel out to other places like Rochester or Syracuse that are nearby. And that's when I was doing more community gardens before I went into the school gardens. So it's been with me all this time, and how to work with children. That comes naturally, and teach them about how corn has ears and potatoes have eyes, and just make little jokes, make it fun for them, you know what I mean? And that just came naturally. I didn't have a lot of formal training. When I worked here I was a landscaper at Bermuda College. So being as a landscaper, I had access to courses like propagation courses, landscape design courses like that. My first job was landscaping with my uncle, my great uncle, Cubit Smith. Some people might know him, but he was one of the main farmers. That was my first job, first summer of high school. So I just grew up doing the work and just carried it on when I went abroad. I didn't have a lot of, and Anandi has a lot of formal training. I didn't do a lot of formal training. I worked for Cornell University as well, Cornell Cooperative Extension for 5 years. So at that time, I was teaching workshops, but also had access to a lot of resources to really, gain whatever information I wanted to. Yeah.
So you really followed your interests in a big regard, and as a result, been able to learn about different things that have kind of supported your ability to share this information and teach others.
Right. And being in an environment, like I said, it was at colleges and a few colleges there and schools. And at the time, my ex-wife was an art teacher at the high school. That's how I got into the school. We started an art garden at the high school. So just making those connections with the resources ahead. Ithaca is a very resourceful town. While I was there, I also did a little video. It's called Tompkins County. So I called the video Bounty of Tompkins County. And I ran around and interviewed 20 different farmers. And people were doing everything out there, making cheese. People were making yarn from alpacas and all sorts of things. So it's nice to be exposed to all of that and see how you can create a more sustainable, community.
And I mean, this is how we did this for decades, for centuries.
Right.
For experiential. This is what everybody was doing.
Right.
So you were interested, you got around it, you learned firsthand, and you just built upon it. A lot of things we can learn hands-on, and then we can benefit from others who are doing the same thing, without having to go into formal institutions.
Right, yeah.
But I understand you have So what's your background?
Yes, so I have studied at farm school in New York City. various different permaculture courses, both in the U.S. and the Caribbean. I've also taught I did the permaculture teacher certificate as well, and I've been teaching around the world on different farms and different courses in herbalism, health and wellness, mental health and wellness, which is so important for our communities as well. This is all connected.
Right.
And various other courses in terms of green infrastructure, clean water, if we're going to build sustainably and healthy. I want to know the details and how that's done versus just hearing somebody talk about it.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah, lots. There's a lot more, but that'll leave it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in terms of permaculture, how would you describe that to someone who's listening right now?
Yeah, so permaculture is earth care, how we care for the earth, people care, how we care for one another, and future care. What are we doing to provide resources for the future? And so how we live in harmony with the environment and everything, all the beings on this planet.
So it's kind of agriculture with a consciousness.
Agriculture, just everything about your way of living.
Right.
Yeah, so it's not just growing food. It's about how you're designing your building, sustainably, how you're getting rid of waste, how you're composting, the entire way in which your city is
It's comprehensive. It's comprehensive. Okay. All right. Yeah, because it's interesting what's happened with agriculture. Because we used to grow food to feed ourselves. And somehow we've gotten into growing food now to make profit.
Right.
And so what's your thought on that, and how has that impacted agriculture around the world?
Well, creating a business out of it, of growing food, I mean, it has its pluses and, minuses, because you are able to make a living out of it in some cases, but then you're also creating less access to those who relied on the community or barter system. Because back in the days, farmers would just trade with each other. Okay, I'm growing this, you're growing that. I'll share my eggs, I'll share my honey, my bread, all these kind of things. And then when you add monetary value to it, then sometimes it's like they might not have the kind of money, but they have the supplies and they have the goods. So it created, it distorted that system.
So what about practices or procedures? Because if I'm just growing food for my family, then I'm going to be thinking about how I can make the food most nutritious. So it's just like cooking.
Right.
If I'm cooking for myself or my family, I'm thinking about okay, what's the best ingredients to put in there? What's the healthiest thing to do?
Right.
But now if I'm cooking food and I'm looking to make money, even if I'm functioning that way, somewhere along the line, somebody's going to be like, okay, so do you really need to use that? Because, I'm just looking at the books and that's costing us X amount of money. And if you cut that out, like, look how much more profits we can end up.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the thing that comes to mind for me, in terms of how agriculture has been impacted, because decisions start getting made based on what's most profitable versus decisions being made about how to create the healthiest environment for producing the best possible food. You know what I mean?
Right. People start cutting corners, taking shortcuts, using, pesticides and different chemicals, which deplete the soil. So the soil is not going to have, because right now the soil in general does not have the nutrients that it had 50 years ago.
Right.
So that's why when you eat food now, you're not getting as much nutrients as your parents or grandparents had. And so we're at this nutrition deficit right now, where it's like, okay, then you're going to have to eat other things or eat more food to be able to get the same nutrients.
Or take supplements.
Right.
That nature, whereas before it was already there. Yeah. So what would you say about soil health? Like what is the situation, and what do we need to be doing?
We should be tilling less. We till the soil too much. We're releasing all of that into the atmosphere.
Tilling meaning turning over the soil.
Yeah, rototilling.
And why are people tilling?
A lot of people tilling to keep the weeds down. They'll till to prep the soil. They'll plant. Stuff will come up. The weeds are gonna come up just as fast. So they're gonna till down between the rows to keep the weeds down. And where in the row where the plants are, they're gonna have to do by hand. But tilling's gonna help you to keep those weeds down a lot easier. That's one of the main reasons a lot of farmers till as maintenance. But some will till in the end of the year, the beginning of the year, and that's it. Now you got this big thing of no-till at all. No-till is getting really popular because you're disturbing the bacteria in the soil every time.
Exactly. So how do we get from till crazy to no till? Like what are people doing? So I hear you saying that this is why people were tilling, and now you're saying that no tilling is getting big. So what is it that people are doing that they weren't doing before that's allowing them not to have to till?
A lot of mulching, cover crops. Cover crops, you want to keep the soil covered so that it's not.
Okay, now you're getting into
it's not losing its nutrients.
Right.
And it's not eroding.
And it's not
The other
eroding.
thing that happens.
Right.
So you're building these almost like lasagna layers of compost, mulch, different kinds of biodegradable materials that are going to build up the soil. You want your carbons in there. You want your nitrogens in there because that's going to build this nice fluffy soil, like the gorgeous soil, you have here in Bermuda. And so building it up, not throwing your food waste away, but adding it to your garden,
Compost.
So
through your compost. So little by little,
Right.
you're able to build up the soil and create healthy soil.
but you said people were tilling to keep down weeds.
Mm-hmm.
So does covering the soil keep down weeds?
Well, you're covered with a cover crop. And a lot of those cover crops are also nitrogen fixers. They're putting nitrogen back in the soil. And then they're just getting tilled in. Like from Bermuda, we grow string beans. String beans are a natural nitrogen fixer. You shouldn't pull that string bean plant out and just throw it away. You know what I mean? That thing's putting nitrogen back in your soil. You should let it sit there, do its thing, and then you should compost it, and turn that into compost. So there's this thing of regenerative agriculture that's gotten really popular. Whereas the monocultures where they was tilling the whole thing, planting one crop, you know what I mean? And then again, till it again, plant one crop. That's why we got a lot of these pest problems. We got a lot of soil depletion through these techniques. So now people are looking how they can build the soil back up, and focusing on the bacteria in the soil, the microorganisms in the soil. If your soil is healthy, you don't need pesticides. The plants can be so healthy and vigorous, it's going to be fine. It's going to, you know what I mean?
So you're saying that if your soil is healthy,
Right.
you don't need pesticides. So this whole thing about needing different chemicals to get rid of the pests can be solved by making sure your soil is healthy.
Right. It
Right.
came about because of depleted soils.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you could build your own insect army, because there are beneficial bugs in there too that help your plants and help keep other insects that you don't want in your garden there. So you could do that by planting particular crops using methods like crop rotation, companion planting. So you think about the relationships with the plants. This one, like when you're living next to your neighbor, and this one, that one. And it's like, okay, this one's going to grow nice next to this one, but I don't know, this one might not do too well.
Okay.
So learning those relationships will help you to grow your plants or create areas where you can have trap crops. So that means you're growing particular crops that attract the bugs that would generally eat your plants up.
Oh, so you're like,
So you divert them
come
away.
to me.
Yeah. So you're
They
sacrificing
start coming
stuff.
for your crops. And
Right.
And then they're going to, okay, I see.
So there's different ways that you think about the relationship with the environment because biodiversity is so important. And we need our pollinators. We need our bees. We need our butterflies. And if we're spraying, looking at everything and just spraying and wanting to kill everything without understanding their function and what they're there for, we all have a function here, So some of them have different things. We just don't know them. We haven't taken that time to know them. And so once you get familiar, and I love to teach children about the bugs, they even drew them up in their garden plans. This is, if I plant, cilantro, that's going to bring the parasitoid wasp. That's going to lay the eggs in the tomato hornworm. And they drew these all on their design. So I was like, my work is done.
Okay.
So then they create that fun relationship with nature and with the plants and learning about where food comes from. And I think the more that we know and the more we learn about exactly where our food comes from, how our food grows, then we can start having more conversations about it, especially in terms of, how we can do more of it here.
Wow. So as I'm sitting there, I'm just thinking like as much as I know already, I have so much more to learn. So I can imagine what you're feeling like in the audience just listening to this. Like, wow, we all need to go to school. Are you setting up a school here?
Yeah, that's actually,
Oh, that's all good.
that's one of the goals here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thing. So it's almost like good bacteria, bad bacteria.
Right.
You know? Or somebody would say like, oh, you need to cut out calories. And then somebody else says, well, calories are your friends. You know what I mean? And then I heard someone, recently in a presentation, someone was saying about cholesterol. And then we talk about, cholesterol is not good for you. And it's like, well, cholesterol is needed for all your reproductive functions and your sex organs.
Right.
So the more we, right, understand or overstand nature, right, and all the different players in it, then the better we're able to work with it. So we don't find ourselves like loading up with bombs and guns and we want to kill everything. You know what I mean? Now we're more like, okay, so we understand what they're doing. Let's just get them to play their role over here. We understand what they're doing. It's a film on Netflix called Big Little Farm or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they went through that journey
Right.
of like, they started and it's like, this is a problem. And then they realized, well, hold on, that's actually preventing this from happening.
Right.
And then something else came and they were like, oh, this is a problem.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and then they said, well, no, we don't need to kill them because they actually take care of this. And then at the end of the day, they just found out that nature just has a way
Right.
of working. Because what's interesting, if we leave land alone, everything just grows.
Oh, yes. Mama Nature will take over.
It just grows. Nobody's tilling anything.
Right.
Nobody's making nice, neat rows. Nobody's doing anything, but stuff's just growing.
Yeah.
Everything's
abundance.
just growing.
Yeah, for
You know
real.
what I mean? So, yeah, it's interesting. So, yeah, learning to work with nature. I mean, that's why the Living Green Expo was created. Was so thankful that you guys were able to come down and be a part of it. But it's helping us to realign with things that have been a strength for us, like in the past. You know what I mean? Because we were food secure in Bermuda, because everyone had their own gardens.
Right.
We had chickens. You know what I mean? People had different cattle or livestock. And if you didn't have it yourself, then the local farm, someone near to you had it, and you were able to barter and exchange. Somebody would show up in your family. Oh, look, here's some of that. Oh, thank you very much. I just needed some of that. Oh, by the way, I got potatoes, or I have carrots, or, and I remember my dad used to put me in the wagon with all the corn or the carrots or the broccoli and cauliflower and all the things that we grew in the garden. And somehow we've managed to get away from that, thinking that we're improving life,
Right.
only recognizing that, right, it's created a whole nother set of challenges, So now we're looking at the expo to realign ourselves with living more in harmony with nature rather than finding ourselves in a war against nature, and thinking about sustainability while we're doing things, not after we've already created an issue. You know what I mean? So we're being more preventative in terms of the way that we function. So what are your thoughts about the expo? What was your experience like? And, how do you feel about the whole initiative?
Oh, wow. Expo was absolutely amazing. So many people, different ages, came through. Everybody just looked delighted, whether they were trying out the vegan food or they were listening to music, speakers, checking out vendors. And it was such a beautiful variety there. So I think having that, getting, locals more familiar with what's out there and what their choices are if they do want to switch to a healthier, more holistic lifestyle.
Yeah. I think it was nice that it was at the same location as the agriculture exhibition,
Okay.
because a lot of people look forward to that. You know what I mean? And so they came with the same type of, just hope to learn something new about nature, make that connection to nature in some way. I had my auntie was there. She was all over, checked out. She came to see me talk, but she checked out everything.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And she really enjoyed herself. You know what I mean? So it's nice to see people being exposed to something new, you know what I mean? And enthusiastic about it, because, I was teased up Berkeley for being a farmer. Nobody don't want nothing to do with farming, you know what I mean? So it's nice to see people, coming out and just wanting to learn, you know what I mean? Times are changing right now. And so we really need to embrace a different type of lifestyle where we're more connected to the land. And so, the fact that you put the energy into all the people that were in the hall or the vendors, that was beautiful to see, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people don't know that that stuff is available and don't know how to access those resources. So to have them there, right in front of people, they can interact with the people and share their information and whatnot. It's beautiful to have that. I go to a lot of conferences in America, a lot of farming conferences, and I love to network with people. So I love those environments. So, to see Bermudians being exposed to that. I mean, there's a lot of foreigners probably too, but foreigners that are living here now that are probably, used to it in America. But for Bermudians, for it to be right on the doorstep, I think that was a big step, in making ourselves more sustainable as an island.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important that those events continue, and people have the opportunity to see what's available, and what companies and what organizations are doing the work already.
Mm-hmm. So the two of you have a mission. You came here to participate in the expo, which we're really appreciative of. But overall, you have some things in mind that you would like to see established in Bermuda, right? Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, well, we would love to see a research farm for educational purposes, and so we could see what's doable. There's a lot of crops that grow on the island that we don't know about. We're in a unique place where we are, where we can grow some of that tropical stuff, that we can grow some of the stuff that is grown in America up north. So we can grow a lot of stuff, and we haven't really tested that yet fully. There's some people that have their own little garden that are, growing certain crops like ackee, mangoes, passion fruit, guava. There are a lot of those things they can grow here, but we don't really, I'm traveled around and, there's a lot of fruits out there. I've been to Africa, you know what I mean? And like seeing an abundance of fruits, and we could grow a lot more here. And I just feel like we need to really tap into what's available, Everybody can have a little small garden, you know what I mean? It's like, it's easy to grow something. The soil is richer. We don't take full advantage of what we have in front of us here. So we want to show people that it's not hard. You know what I mean? You don't have to claim to have a green thumb. You know what I mean? And, it's doable. So we want to put something in place to show people, especially children, because children don't have that connection of where their food comes from. People, they just know that mama goes to the store, get some food. But, I think it's important for children to make that connection. So that's kind of the key of where our work has been working with children. But we also host a lot of workshops for adults who may want to just learn a little something. So we want to be able to educate people, give them the basic information they need, and supply resources, seeds, tools. I know there's a lot of restrictions on bringing seeds or whatnot to the island, but we really need to change and embrace a type of lifestyle that can help us to sustain ourselves and stop being reliant on import so much. So we would like to put something in place that people can come, learn, and feel what it's like to actually have a lifestyle. Even if you could have a homestead that's like a model of like you can have your house and garden, and people can come see, like you can have your herbs around and your vegetables, everything right there. So people see it's tangible. So we like to create a model that people can see that, make this more realistic. And Anandi has a lot of stuff that she's already put together, you know what I mean, as far as creating this vision. And we would love to carry this out on different islands as well, but Bermuda being a place that's like so food insecure, we feel that this is a good place for us to start.
Okay. So anything you'd like to add to that?
I think increasing the biodiversity of plants here and foods that are available would be absolutely amazing, and showcasing how, because if you think that you just have a small space and not enough to grow something, you can. If I could grow food in New York City, you could probably grow, something here to feed yourself and probably your family. Because about a 1 acre lot can feed about a family of 4.
Okay.
And we could do a lot more, and being able to demonstrate and show folks and provide education through workshops, hands-on activities. We can show this is, it's not maybe so hard, not so scary. This is something we can all do and all approach, and be able to, take a hand in our own health and wellness.
Right. So in terms of first steps, if you were to give Bermudians, advice, what would you advise us to do in terms of like, what are the first steps we should be taking to address this food insecurity that we're facing right now?
I think we need to do what's right in front of us, If you got a little porch or something, get a plot, plant a seed. Start off with plant a seed. This is planting time right here. Everybody should be planting something right now. This is your time right here. In America, everything is getting covered in snow in most parts. People stop growing. And I think this was the time of year that Bermuda was excelling on exporting food to New York. You know, this is where we can like really excel. And I think we need to start small. Just start showing your children, you know, where your food comes from. Maybe have a little plant and so they can see how a tomato grows. You know, I think it's starting off in the home. You know, that's where it should start. And then from there, we can branch out into the community, have more community gardens. I helped Mr. Royal Frederick clear his garden yesterday and the day before down in Paget, where they got all these community plots. You know, he's up in like 80 years old now, you know, so I helped him do he's been the director of that community garden for 35 years. And that's a model in place for a long time that we could be utilizing other parts of the island. So it could start with a little home garden, a community garden, and from there, make a connection to our farmers. You know, I have to send a shout out to Gabriel Brian Swan. He's been farming on this island organically forever. You know, there's a lot of Portuguese farmers out there that are really using a lot of chemicals and stuff. There's some people that's embracing organic more, but we've really polluted this land. We need to reclaim the land. You know, a lot of the land's been taken away from us. A lot of these golf courses are probably hopeless at this point because I had so much chemicals put in them. But there's ways around that too. We could remediate the soil through stuff like hemp. We could grow hemp and remediate that soil over a period of time. But starting home, the community, and this island's not that big. You know what I mean? We could have like everybody, we could have the government was talking about a vertical farm and stuff like that. You know, I think it's good to implement some technology, but I think they should be investing in the farmers who have been doing the thing for a long time. You know, so yeah, I think that, you know, teaching your children, and especially my thing is farm to plate. You know, you have a little garden, show the children, go outside, pick something, take it inside, prepare it. That's what I was doing with the children. I would take them out. When I worked at Cornell University, we had vans. I would take them out to a farm. I had a commercial kitchen at my job, and we make 3 dishes out of what they saw growing on the farm. So you could do that right in your house. Show the children, you know, how you pick it, how you prepare it. You know what I mean? Then the community could be having a community garden, making meals at the community garden to share. You know, and then just building from there. You know what I mean? And from the community go out into the, you know, the island as a whole. And I think that we can really come together. We are a very like family oriented community here. You know, I'm from, like I said, Dallas Hill. Most of us were family and we stuck together. You know what I mean? There's no reason why we can't do that anymore.
All right. Give thanks. So based on your experience so far, do you feel that there's enough space in Bermuda for us to be able to feed ourselves in the way Guyana feeds?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yes, there are lands that are not being used right now. There's spaces, I look at everybody's gardens and front yards, and it's like, okay, you could have a nice, you know, little space here to grow a little food. And if everybody just takes that on, and maybe even like a 5x5 or a 10x10 plot, you know, you don't want to give up all your lawn maybe. But yeah, I think it's absolutely possible here to do it because it's not a huge population. You know, as an island nation, it's very important. You know, if you're having 95% of food imports, what happens if those ships can't get to the port?
Oh, it's a serious.
It's like you have to think about how long is it going to take, you know, what crops can grow, you know, succession planting, like what do I need to plant now so that I can have this food a couple of months from now, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, absolutely possible here.
Yeah, it's been a big debate about like, do we have enough space here? You know, I understand there's a lot of government land that's being used and there's some land that's not being used, but you bring up a good point. There's a lot of grass, you know what I mean? So Garen Simmons, you know, is someone who speaks a lot about that. You know, and when you go to his yard, he has plants everywhere. It's like you're not gonna see any like spur grass in my yard.
Right.
You know, he said to me one time, he said, you know, people have these yards and they spend all the money keeping the yards manicured. When those yards could be producing food that saves them money.
Right.
So rather than producing food with this space, we want to make it so-called look pretty.
Right.
You know, which costs us. You know what I mean? When it could be, right, producing and saving us.
Right.
So it's something to consider, Bermuda. You know, we've shifted a lot. You know, we've considered a lot of the changes we've made to be progress. You know, we've become more sophisticated. We've moved away from trades and farming. you know, and we've moved into more kind of clerical positions, more technical positions and things of that nature. But has that really served us in the big picture? You know, when we think about something as simple as food security, understanding there was a time when we had it, you know, how do we now feel about the fact that it's been lost? These are critical things that tend to come into our mind space in a hurricane, when all of a sudden ships are not coming in, you know, but then all of a sudden we seem to forget that when the ships arrive again and we go back to normal rather than addressing the issues that create that fear in those moments, you know. So these are things for us to think about, you know. Can we produce our own food? Of course we can, because we did it already. And with that in mind, there's no reason why we're unable to do it again. And I thank you guys for coming and sharing your experience and sharing all your training and your credentials with our community and being willing to help us with addressing this problem. You know, it's great. I'm going to do my own study and research on Guyana. And it looks like there was leadership behind that said, this is an important issue for us to address as a country. You know, and they had that money that could have been invested in anything. And that's just like all of us. We have money that we can choose to invest in anything. But what are we investing it in? Mm-hmm. That's something for us to think about. In Guyana, you chose to invest in food security. And now you have it. And as a result of that, people don't have to worry about where the sustenance is going to come from. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Or who's going to come to save you.
Right.
Because you save yourselves.
Mm-hmm. You just take one stroll through the Guyana and any of the markets in town.
And you realize
you can see the absolute abundance that's available there. Anything grown by farmers.
Okay. And you guys must be feeding the world.
We probably could.
You probably could. Yeah. So again, thank you guys for joining us. You know, we have Damon Brangman here. We have Anandi Premlaw here. She's from Guyana. You hear us talking about how it's the most food secure place in the world. And Damon's someone who comes from Bermuda. We went to school together. He left the island. He's learned a lot, you know, from his own personal challenges. It's forced him to grow and develop in different areas. And we're so thankful that he's interested in returning home to help address some of the challenges that we face here. So thank you guys both for coming to Bermuda for the Living Green Expo. It's great to have international guests joining us for our local event. And more so, just thank you for your interest in developing programs and initiatives that can help us with our food security on the island. So with that said, I'll say to everyone who watched this program, let's think about these things more than for a fleeting moment. They're real serious issues, and rather than for us waiting till it gets critical, rather than us waiting till we find ourselves in a position where we're unable to feed ourselves, let's take the steps required to make sure that we once again become food secure. So give thanks for watching us tonight. Again, this is Meet the Changemakers. I'm Eugene Dean. Peace and love.